The designer here has, I think, put a pergola, which is being obscured at the moment by the hatching over the driveway. I just want to check. And that's on a layer called pergola. So let's isolate that layer. And we can do that via tools and isolate layer pergola. And I'd be inclined, there it is, so I'd be inclined to select all of that, create a block, and let's give it its obvious name, pergola. And for a base point, always pick a base point, very important. We'll make the base point, I think, right up in the top right, and we'll say OK. Now let's turn on our various layers. We want the symbol layer off, we can leave on. The edging can come on, boundary, we'll check that in a moment, and layer 0. And we now have our pergola sitting out above some hatching for the driveway. So that's sitting currently on layer 0. Well, we'll check the edging layer by doing the same thing. Come down here and isolate layer edging, and OK that. Now here we are. Layer edging looks to be thick lines, so let's have a look at the settings over here. It's been set with 0.25. I'd be inclined to put that back to default. But I do notice that if we pick this one here, that's a short line segment. But if we pick this one here, another line segment and another, so that looks fine. Well, they're polylines, aren't they? Almost looks like the footpath layer, and it looks as though we're missing another line through here. So what we'll do now is turn on all of the used layers, turn them all on, back they come, and we'll just have a look at this. There's the missing one. That's a big long arc on a layer called boundary. So I think we'll leave it on the layer boundary, but we need to do something about this short segment through here. I think we could happily delete that one. So you can see it really important to get layering correct. When we're advising students on the best approach for this, we think throw pretty much everything on layer 0 and separate it all out at the end rather than do it as you are working through the design. If we select the driveway area, notice its border colour is set to 253 and its colour to 254, but some transparency has been associated with it. That's fairly clumsy arrangement. Let's go to 255, get away from transparency, and just see what that looks like. That's going to work reasonably well, I think. We need to add a vertex or two, so we'll use nearest and come in here. We'll put one vertex there, then we'll move this one to an end point, and finally move that vertex to this end point, and I'm happier now with that. So we now have a polyline defining the driveway or paved area, which is under the pergola. Its colour is set to 254. It does have a border, currently set to a very similar colour. Let's make it stand out by giving it a border, a sharper border. And while I'm at it, I'd probably be inclined to pick that block and edit the block, possibly change the colour to a fairly obvious timber colour, and I'd be also inclined to add a line from one corner to the other, put that on a layer pergola, and just add a text note. Designed by others. Whoops, I need caps lock on. We'll OK that. make it match in terms of height. I think we had 200 for the text of the driveway, and then we'll move it like so. We'll close the, maybe make that, well, modify, match properties of that colour to that, and now we close the block editor. So there's the pergola standing out quite nicely now. Well, there are clearly a number of pillars to be inserted across the front boundary of the site, and they've been set to colour 248, but with a transparency of 75. So I think that's difficult to work with. I'd push that back to 255 for the transparency and unselect all, and to my mind nothing much changes in the colour. But what I think I would do is pick those pillars, the rectangles indicating pillars. I would use tools and bring them to the front and possibly just change their colour as well while you are at it. The grassed areas in this design have been, or have had, transparency applied to them at 100. Let's change that to, well, let's take off transparency and unselect all. And you can see there's no difference. And so we don't need transparency there. Transparency really useful when you have upper canopy, but not needed for the grassed area there. I'm going to select the polyline that runs around this zone here, and transparency has not been set, but what we will do is allow a fill to it, and we'll set a border and follow our sort of standard approach. So those two grassed areas have now been done. The designer here has taken the symbols on the left here for some roses and just mirrored them to the right, and you can see that the text inside the block has been mirrored, and there's no simple way of changing that information. What we need to do is to modify the block itself. To explode a block and break it into its constituent parts, select the block, right click and click explode. In this case, what happens is that the piece of text shoots off to the right. We could change it by saying we'll write it backwards, and now the piece of text, and then bring it, we've got the contents RGR just like the backwards one, and then we could bring it to the front. But that creates a great deal of difficulty because we can't use our counting system to do a plant schedule. We would miss out on these exploded blocks. So by far the most efficient way here, instead of mirroring those symbols across with the label on it, is to simply copy them. And with Polar On, we can simply select them and copy from that as a base point across like so. Now those blocks there have their identifying text in the correct direction, and they'll be counted when we're doing the plant schedule. Well, we've done a considerable amount of editing on this design, cleaned things up, and it's now behaving quite nicely. Let's do a final check by running the plant schedule. Set the box up like so, and the schedule runs. We'll just take a little look at it. There are some missing bits. There's a mixture of upper and lower case with headings such as silver bush and short standard rose, but cimarron ash starts with a capital, Portuguese laurel, and we're looking fairly good. The white azalea looks good. So I'm happy with the design now. We can pass it on and the designer can keep editing, and things will work a little more snappily.